Whenever if you are in a power scaling versus and debating community, if you use any fictional character or verse to scale them, things usually get a little critical once people start disagreeing with you. But once you put them in a versus battle and you choose one character over the other, who has better win cons than the other, fanboys will get pissed once their character loses, and that is a cancerous part of the community. Now, the list won't be in order, so do not come bitching at me in the comment section about this, and I'll give you each timestamps on each character in the description below. Now, don't get me wrong, I love these verses too. You can call me a fanboy, but that doesn't make it any less true. And with that taken care of, let's get down to business. Number 10, the Naruto fanboys. A lot of anime power scalers scale this verse. They attract a lot of them, and factually so. The verse has some pretty great abilities like the Amaterasu, cloning, six paths, etc. Which is why you would want to scale the verse or even use them in a versus battle. That being said, some of the diehard Naruto fanboys take it too far in my opinion. They swear that they would be a far and out hacks anybody and anything in a versus battle, equal stats or not. But there is something called hacks resistance, speed blitzing, higher AP, and durability, to which some Naruto characters have no answer for. See if y'all can catch them lacking in the comments or anything on the internet. It probably won't take you long. Number 9, the Sailor Moon fanboys. I would not argue that this verse is very underrated in terms of power scaling. It does have some underrated decent amount of abilities as well, and hacks. And their AP and durability is also pretty impressive. And yes, I do agree that this verse does get downplayed a lot, but that doesn't take away the fact that there are Sailor Moon fanboys out there that I will argue that they can't beat anyone either. Just like Naruto fanboys, just because you have more abilities, that doesn't mean you always win every fight you come across. And their immortality with the crystals are very noticeable and can be broken pretty easily. It shouldn't take you long to notice it. If you guys see these kinds of arguments and you believe that the character you're using is higher than the verse, tell them that I can shatter those crystals with not much difficulty at all. Number 8, the Doki Doki Literature Club fanboys. Warning, do not upset this group. If you present an argument on why this verse gets beaten by a lot of other verses, they will put you in an ad hominem warfare. These guys are basically making the most repetitive puns in this verse. It used to be funny back in the day, but as of now, it's pretty repetitive. Don't get me wrong, I am a fan of this verse, and it has some broken abilities and hacks like Monica manipulating the plot of the game, and basically like narrative deleting people on the narrative level. But this does not excuse the fact that this verse has her fanboys. They will protect their waifu even when she has no win con over other verses. And they think that Monica's non-existence is the most OP out of all of her abilities, which isn't true at all, and it's very faulty. This can get negged by regular existence erasure. Don't even need the conceptual shit. Boundary manipulation, getting absorbed, etc. And this goes without saying, because you have more abilities than your opponent, that doesn't mean you win every time. Number 7. The Yandere Simulator fanboys. As for this group, their game hasn't been finished since, and we don't know how long it's going to be finished, but that doesn't matter because the game and its abilities are pretty decent, not too bad. But the fanboys will argue that the costumes that Yandere-chan or Ayano Ash wears, like Saiyans, Super Saiyan, Gasai, etc. That means the character knows every ability the character has and is on the same level as them. But as you can see, it's very fallacious to try to argue that those costumes are even on the same level as in that set character. You would have to prove that the verses are connected to each other and that her abilities would be even on the same tier as them. It's not that hard to debunk at all. But I'm still a fan of this verse, but this doesn't make it any less true. Number 6. The JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fanboys. Don't get me wrong, I am a huge fan of JoJo, and the fan base is pretty chill and funny once you get to know them. Their abilities are pretty OP, and the most common thing about the verse is a thing that what you call stands, meaning basically non-corporeal beings. But once you put them in a versus battle, and oh boy, it gets crazy. They claim that if you don't have a stand, you always lose no matter what. which is really fallacious because there are fictional characters who can see non-corporeal beings, can be negged by all types of hacks, and the speed and AP will one-shot the stand user anyways. If y'all see any of these arguments, tell them that it won't matter if you're faster and have higher AP and durability and better hacks and resistances. Number 5, the Undertale fanboys. The Undertale power scaling is pretty decent, but it has a lot of fanboys and their claims saying Sans would dodge anything no matter what hacks, AP, or speed scaling you have, you just can't hit it. Which is sadly debunked, and even if you want to say that he can dodge anything, later on at the end of the boss fight, Sans literally gets killed by Frisk, even though they did get killed by him a lot of times. Another argument is that no one can beat Frisk or Kara because reset and determination. Now, you can use this argument on verses that can't beat them, but you can't argue that they can survive verses that can create and destroy concepts. And there are characters in fiction who can neg determination or just BFR you. And the most fallacious argument out of 3 is they will argue that no one can kill Azrael because he has infinite health and stats, even though there are verses in fiction that have infinite layers upon infinite. So I don't see why that's so OP compared to upon infinite layers, and people say he's omnipotent, which is false. Number 1, omnipotent just means all powerful in your own verse, not every other verse in fiction. Even though I hate using that word or term omnipotence, it's really dumb. Plus, he isn't omnipotent or omniscient or omnipresent in that matter, so that would also debunk it. Annoying Dog, Gasser, Carrot, and even Frisk are above him. And that already debunks him being omnipotent, and he's not even the most powerful in his own verse. It won't be that difficult to find these comics and debunk their headcanon. Number 4, the Sonic fanboys. Warning, if you are a Sonic fanboy and you feel offended by this video, you should leave now. Look, I am actually a big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog and the verse as a whole. And yes, a lot of people downplay Sonic a lot back in the day. And his abilities are pretty OP within the games and the IDW, but they are nothing compared to the Archie comics. And Archie Sonic is revealed to be the next death battle versus the Flash using the Wally West version. But that doesn't take away the fact that they are Sonic fanboys out there, and they would argue to the end of their days that Sonic would speed shot anyone no matter what. This is very fallacious because there are people in fiction that speed is irrelevant to them. And it doesn't matter if you have more win cons than Sonic, they will defend this hedgehog to the ends of the earth. You can spot these guys like Sonic vs. Comics, Sonic vs. Dragon Ball, Sonic vs. Mario, or any versus battle in particular. Number 3, the Dragon Ball fanboys. This is one of my favorite verses so far, and it's one of the OGs in terms of power scaling and versus battles. When you first get into the verse, the fan base is pretty chill like JoJo Bizarre fans. When it comes to fanboying and versus battle, this is where things take south. Just like Sonic fanboys, they'll defend their verse to the end of time. But the difference is that when the other side has more win cons than them, they basically get in their feelings and go off on a warfare. Some of the time when they have a versus battle, they always assume that their character is going to win without even looking at the other character's win con. And I have to admit, I was one of these fanboys way back in the day as well, but that doesn't make it any less true. The only thing that's downplayed about the verse is the hacks and abilities of the verse. People who argue Dragon Ball only, or like most of the people who would argue it, only go off by attack potency and durability, which is AP. They rarely go over the hacks and the non-canon material like the games that are most powerful than canon counterparts. People argue that Beerus can Akai anything and anyone no matter what, but that is fallacious because Goku in his base form has survived the Akai. Frieza can actually control the Akai, and Vegeta has negged Toppo's Akai. Dragon Ball still has potential to get even stronger, but until then, it's still not the strongest verse by far. Number 2. The Touhou fanboys. This is also one of my favorite verses to go over, and it does have some great skillings and some insane hacks like boundary manipulation, etc. But the Touhou fanboys are like the Dragon Ball fanboys, but basically more butthurt. People have claimed that Yukari, Yakumo, or Yakumo, whatever, without hacks anyone, even someone on a platonic level, which is really ridiculous. Because there are people in fiction who transcend platonic concepts and can't be affected by the manipulation in itself. So you can't use that argument at all, and people claim that Sakya Azor or whatever would time hacks anyone no matter what, which is also fallacious because there are people who can resist foreign time manipulation and hacks, etc. I love this verse, but it's definitely not the strongest verse either in my book. Number 1. I hope you guys do not get out the pitchforks and be mad at me on this one, but for number 1, the Saitama fanboys, and oh boy, you got a lot to go over. Now as for this verse, I love One Punch Man. They have some good consistent scaling for the most part, and sometimes it's inconsistent sometimes. And the abilities in the verse are pretty underrated, and the characters are too. And why did I only put Saitama in the top and not One Punch Man fanboys? Well, here's the thing. A lot of people don't use the other characters besides Saitama. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate Saitama, but I'm going in no homo. The arguments or wank the Saitama's fanboys use is, number 1, he's a limitless, omnipotent, and he's a gag character. Number 2, Saitama wins every versus battle because of he was written not to lose. Number 3, his name is One Punch Man, so therefore he one-shots everyone no matter AP, durability, hacks, or even speed. Now, this is really fallacious because there isn't a statement suggesting he has limitless power. He has limitless potential. 2, he might be the strongest in his own verse, but here's the thing. He isn't omniscient or omnipresent, so that wouldn't even matter. And just because he's arguably a gag character, that doesn't mean he solos fiction. There are gag characters who are really strong and some are very weak, and to which you can't argue for either. And just because he's never lost before, or he was written not to lose, that's only within his own verse. And when you put him in a versus battle in neutral ground like Saitama versus Goku, Saitama versus Ryu, Saitama versus Sonic, Saitama versus Kara, Saitama versus Superman, Saitama versus Thor, etc. It's about feats and scaling. The author isn't writing the battle. And saying his name is One Punch Man, therefore he can one-shot fiction, which is a name fallacy. And even if you want to say he's holding back, which is true, that still doesn't excuse the fact that he had to kill Burles in multiple punches, and a serious punch for a reason. And there are people who would B-blitz, one-shot, and even out-hack Saitama. If you guys see any of these arguments within the comment section or in the internet, just tell them that they need to prove that he can do that on a neutral ground. Well, that's all for today. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to slap that like button, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'm grinding to get 1K views, and I'll see you next time. Peace.